On the morning of April 15th, 2020, I made a video discussing 5 WWE superstars that were released from the company. Now, as I mentioned in that video, we knew that WWE was going to release many more superstars because WWE had formally announced to the company that they were going to be making roster cuts, staff members would be laid off or released from the company, and that executives would be taking a pay cut. Several hours later, many different WWE superstars were released, and quite honestly, this is a very shocking list. So we're going to break it down. There are over 30 plus members of the WWE roster who have been released, and according to WrestleVotes on Twitter, there is expected to be hundreds more within the coming days and weeks. We're going to talk about it first, but make sure you guys click that subscribe button and ring the bell. This way you guys could get notified on all of the latest content right here on DPW. As you guys know, I am currently doing this YouTube stuff for the next several weeks full time. So your guys' support would be appreciated. Literally can't even go to a barbershop and get a haircut. That's how much times have changed. But nonetheless, what's really important here is we talk about the list of WWE superstars who have been released. There's also a little bit of information that's out there in regards to what WWE is going to take, or it's what they're going to do to take care of some of the superstars that were released. Also, we're going to talk about AEW because the hot topic on Twitter is whether or not AEW will be signing a lot of these guys. So, with that being said, the first 5 WWE superstars that we mentioned in the channel previously was Drake Maverick, EC3, Karl Anderson, Lio Rush, and Curt Hawkins. Now, based on those first 5 names, it almost seemed like it made sense, aside from Karl Anderson, of course, becoming part of the main event at WrestleMania recently. That was very out of nowhere. But, you know, Drake Maverick, EC3, Lio Rush, you know, Curt Hawkins, these aren't guys that are typically used in major storylines. And ultimately, as much as we hate the idea of them being released, we almost kind of saw that coming. Karl Anderson obviously was a shock, but what was even a bigger shock was his tag team partner, Luke Gallows, was shortly announced after. Now, the reason why this is a big shock, as you guys know, the OC, who has been paired with AJ Styles in recent years, you know, they just took place at the WrestleMania 36 main event, one of the most historically incredible matches that's ever taken place in WWE. And they had a very big integral part of that. So they were released. That was considered a shocker. Now, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit at the end about why some of these releases aren't actually as shocking as it may sound. But nonetheless, WWE continued to release WWE superstars such as Eric Young, Heath Slater, and let me just say, Heath Slater, for example, you know, I'm really hoping this is a situation where he comes back just like Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal, because that would be an incredible story. But these two were definitely released, and quite shocking because, again, these guys have been with WWE for a pretty long time, you know. And then WWE had announced that they had laid off some backstage agents or producers. So those producers were Lance Storm, Shane Helms, Mike Rotunda, Fit Finlay, Pat Buck, Billy Kidman, Shawn Daivari, Scott Armstrong, Sarah Stock. Now those producers right there have been announced so far as being on a temporary leave / layoff. What's very shocking is WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle, as you guys know, was working as a WWE producer. It's been said that he's actually been released from his job with WWE, so he has not been laid off. He is not expected in any capacity to come back. Now, keep in mind, with being a leave of absence or a layoff or something like that, you're not necessarily guaranteed your job back, but WWE has the right to bring them back. It's something that's very tricky to explain, but layoffs don't necessarily mean you're away from your job for good. In this case, Kurt Angle would be the opposite of every other agent in the sense that he is gone from the company. Now, WWE also goes on to announce the release of Sarah Logan, which has been quite shocking because, as you guys know, she's actually been used on TV pretty recently, and honestly, a lot of people were starting to enjoy the fact that she was a fresh face as part of the women's division. She's been released. Veteran referee Mike Chioda has been released, which quite shocking. Erick Rowan, another shocking name, somebody who has been prominently used in WWE, and they pretty much did nothing with him. They did the whole storyline with him having something in his cage, and then for some reason, WWE didn't do anything. Then we got the release of Primo and Epico, a tag team veteran veteran tag team in WWE that honestly nobody understood why they were still signed to WWE. They were working for, I think it was like their uncles or their father. Some family members of theirs have a wrestling promotion in Puerto Rico. They've obviously been working for them during their WWE run. So again, kind of out of nowhere, but it kind of makes sense, I guess. Mike and Maria Kanellis, they have been let go by WWE. Now, this is somebody who has asked for the release several times within the past year, last few years, actually. And, nobody really knew what was going on with Mike and Maria Kanellis their whole entire WWE career. So is it shocking? No, but it almost makes you question why WWE even threw them so much money in the first place. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then WWE goes on to shockingly release Zack Ryder. So Zack Ryder, another veteran in WWE. So again, like your Curt Hawkins, you'll have, Curt Hawkins, Heath Slater, Zack Ryder. Like these guys are very, very, they're they may not be the biggest stars in WWE. They may not get the most screen time, but they're veterans within the company. So again, it's just kind of shocking that WWE went that far. No Way Jose, somebody who just flew out to Orlando for a live episode of Raw, only to get a call 2 days later and be told that he's released. Again, it just doesn't make sense. WWE also goes on to release Rusev. So there's been no confirmation that Lana has been released, but we know that Rusev is gone from WWE, which is just like really shocking at this point. Like it is just genuinely shocking. I don't think anybody really expected this to happen. And quite honestly, when you look at somebody like Rusev, this guy could have been such a big star in WWE, and you really have to wonder why WWE just didn't do anything with him. Like, who did he piss off backstage for him not to get the deserved push that he deserves? Now we go on to find out that WWE has released Aleksander Jaksich from NXT. So he hasn't actually debuted on NXT television. He's been working the Performance Center, but WWE has been trying to work him up. There was a lot of talk about this guy possibly even being on the main roster very, very soon, just based on his look and some of his character development. WWE also confirms the release of Deonna Purrazzo. If you guys didn't know, she's been working NXT. She even worked a couple main roster matches also on WWE main event. She confirmed on Twitter that this is something that she's been wanting in recent history. So it may sound like she tried getting her release previously, but it was just never granted. Josiah Williams, unfortunately, actually, I think a lot of people on YouTube know who he is as Wrestle and Flow. He's been doing a lot of stuff with social media, Instagram, NXT UK recently. He's a very, very creative young man that honestly, I get maybe on the main roster, a lot of people don't know who he is, but as far as NXT goes, he's very he's a very integral part of that NXT brand. Especially with the creative lab that NXT has been doing. A lot of the content that he's been pushing out with WWE has been incredible. And if you guys didn't know, he's also been on screen for backstage interviews. They've used him to rap the Adam Cole Undisputed Era entrance, which was really cool at an NXT takeover. But now we have some rumor names as well. So there's definitely over 30 plus people, but we have 4 names that haven't officially been confirmed by WWE. I'm sorry, 5. So we have the Viking Raiders, Peyton Royce, Billy Kay, Kairi Sane, Ruby Riott. These names haven't been confirmed, but these names have been floating around on Twitter. So we don't know for sure if they have been released. There's been no confirmation from WWE, but all the other names listed have been confirmed. These names are shocking, though. Viking Raiders just got a win over Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, which so far there's been no mention of them being released. Thankfully, because I think Paul Heyman could do something very special with those guys. But Viking Raiders being released is a very, very very huge shock in my opinion. Hopefully these names aren't confirmed. Realistically, look, guys, there's no good way to look at this. All of these people are without a job, and we all know damn well that this pandemic that's going on, it's affecting everybody. It's impacted me. It's impacting a lot of you. This sucks. This is not fun, I think WWE is a huge company where they don't necessarily have to, I don't think they necessarily have to make these cuts. And I think that's kind of the big thing. Word came out that WWE, as of right now, for NXT, this hasn't been talked about for the main roster, but word came out, and I believe it was Sean Ross Sapp, mentioned that NXT talent is being provided 30 days worth of pay. And after that, they are free to do whatever they want. So it doesn't sound like, at least specifically NXT. Maybe main rosters included. This was just specific to the NXT roster. But anybody from NXT who is cut, they are expected to be able to leave at some point. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I think at this point, a lot of these guys, unfortunately, they're not going to have a job to go out to. They're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to work the indies as much as we'd hope, because the indies right now is non-existent, and we don't know how long social distancing is going to go on for. There's a lot of news and rumors that are going to impact WWE and AEW for next year. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned, because we're going to be breaking the news very, very soon. But I'm bringing this up because nobody knows where these guys are going to work. As far as AEW goes, I really don't know if AEW could sign a lot of these guys. We don't know what it's like financially for them. This obviously, WWE is a huge company, but every major corporation is making cuts. This is just one of those situations. I just don't know if AEW can afford everybody. We know that Zack Ryder and AEW makes a lot of sense. We know Rusev going to AEW makes a lot of sense. Quite honestly, a lot of these guys going to AEW make a lot of sense. For those who want to see EC3 in AEW, it makes a lot of sense. But we don't know the financial situation with ROH, AEW, and Impact. But hopefully all of these people are able to go somewhere. And I don't want to see them all go to AEW, but I do want to see them move on to somewhere else with a television deal. Ultimately, this sucks. Like I said, there's no way to make it sound positive. But I do think every single person on this list, I think they all have the potential to be a star. So whether that's WWE in the future, whether that's, AEW or whatever it may be, we'll see what happens, guys. But I want to know what you think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.